All right. So I want to talk about something crazy that happened this morning. On, a couple weeks ago, just before Christmas in Seattle, this lady's waiting. This was on the news. Like, you can look this up if you haven't heard about it. This lady's waiting at a crosswalk, and a guy walks up behind her. This old lady at a crosswalk, somebody's grandma is at a crosswalk, and some guy, some I I don't even want to call this a guy. This guy is like, this is just pure evil. And he walks up with a board with a big screw on the end of it and smacks this lady on the head. The video was on the news. I mean, they skipped the part of impact, but you can see they had like a street cam or whatever. And the lady literally standing at the crosswalk, just minding her own business. And then this guy comes up behind her, and like, she lost her eye, right? She literally, it destroyed her eye. This big screw went in the side of her head, and she lost her eye. I mean, I like have honestly been struggling with this. I've talked to Nikki about it a bit over the last probably 2 weeks. I think it happened about 2 weeks ago, maybe. And I've been struggling to like make sense of this. There's no like explanation. I don't understand it. Um, it was just like a random act of violence. And on New Year's, I heard about this shooting. This guy's like at a stoplight with his daughter. This was in Tacoma, and four people got out of this car, and three of them had like assault rifles, and somebody else had a shotgun, and they just started shooting at this car. And I'm like, this is crazy. Just, it's random violence, right? It's not like um, these people knew each other. In fact, the incident in Seattle, the lady at the crosswalk, she um, uh, the police officers, when they came to arrest the guy, they knew him already, like, by name. He had been arrested numerous times. In fact, one of the police officers in the body cam video that was released, that they put on the news, said, "Oh, yeah, we've been arresting him for a long time for random acts of violence on whatever street it was on, Aurora, or I don't even know. I don't. I'm not super familiar with the streets in Seattle, but they knew this guy from that area, just committing random acts of violence." And I'm like, this is crazy. How, like, what goes through somebody's mind to just hit somebody with a board with a screw on the end? And this has like really been bothering me for the last few weeks. I'm just like kind of beside myself, not able to like make sense of this. And a lot of times we hear about bad things in the world, and I mean, if you think about it, there's ways to kind of like figure out, okay, this might be something I got from my mom. Maybe this is like a trait that I got from my mom, being able to see the best in people. And sometimes you can make sense of it. Say, oh, well, this person was abused and that's why they're doing this, or this happened and so that's why they're doing this. It's not justifying. It's just like trying to understand the behaviors of people. This is just like psychology, right? It's not, psychology doesn't create human behavior. Human behavior creates psychology. And so to understand psychology, the field of psychology, right? I mean, it's like, and I guess I'm just going to go off on a tangent already, but it's like philosophy, right? Is the basis of formal education is philosophy. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's all philosophy. And this dates back to, at least formal education as we know it now, dates back to when um, civilizations began to, or governments began to form. And this dates back to the Romans, and Greek philosophy is the basis of religion. You know, you got to think at the time, a few thousand years ago, they didn't have, like, not very many people even knew how to read. So it was all left to religious interpretation. And I believe, this is my opinion, you can fact check this, I believe that philosophy was kind of saying our as in like people, our way to understand the world around us, whereas before we had the Bible, right? So there's one way of understanding. Then we say, wait, maybe there's more to this that God created that we don't really know because it wasn't given in the Word. Little tangent there. So I've been thinking about this the last few days, and today I opened my Bible to Matthew 15. And in 15, it's a passage about Jesus dealing with the Pharisees and his disciples. And he says in verse 11, Matthew 15:11, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a person. And that's not just what is said. So this is literal and figurative, and I'll qualify that here in a second. In verse 18, what comes out of the mouth comes from the heart, and this defiles a person. From the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, sexual immoralities, thefts, false testimonies, and slander. And that's what that is, from the heart. And so I've been thinking about this, and I'm like, you know, one thing that I'm kind of hot on, that I like to think about a lot, is emotion and logic, and how these two work together, and how these play out in our human experience, or mine. Let's not say our. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I'll just say in my experience, right? And so I've been looking up here, and on my whiteboard up there, I did this video yesterday that said this same thing about thoughts, or how and why, and about emotion and logic. And I think our heart is representative of our emotions, our humanness, right? Our emotions are what make us human. And you know, um, if you so after that, I was thinking about this verse. Man, I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'll get better at this, I swear. I flipped back to Proverbs 16, because this is what I flipped to, and I was like, you know, Proverbs 16 that I wrote on my whiteboard the other day, wrote a long list. Actually, I could show that on the screen here. These are all of the verses. I'm going to try to cover my notes here. I don't want to get all of my notes out into the world, but that long list right there, and it says Levi, or it's spelled Leb in Hebrew, has to do with heart. And if you read that in the concordance further down, it says emotions. And I realized Matthew wasn't written in Hebrew. However, Proverbs was. And so when I flipped back to Proverbs 16:1, and again, all of these verses here are just in Proverbs. That's the whole list. I hand wrote all of that from the concordance because I was like, I want to know what all of these verses say. I haven't worked through the whole list yet, but I got them all right there. And that's how much this word is in Proverbs. And it's dealing with our humanness. And again, the definition is heart, inner man, soul, conscience, and emotions. And Jesus said what comes from our mouth is rooted in our heart, and that's what defiles a man. And so I flip back to Proverbs 16:1. Says the reflections of the heart belong to mankind, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. And so I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And dug a little deeper. I went to the next verse up here, 18:4, and here's where it gets crazy. So a minute ago I read Matthew 15:8. And here's what's written in my Bible in 18:4. The words of a person's mouth are deep waters, a flowing river, a fountain of wisdom. And look at this. Matthew 15:18 was written in my Bible, and I was just like blown away by this. I don't know when I wrote that in there, but this is it was one of those things where I just kind of closed my eyes and started praying a little bit, because these are the things that I discover in the Bible that God reveals to me. And I didn't have Proverbs written in here in the Matthew reference. But I don't know. I'm just like blown away by that. And so that's what I'm thinking about today is evil thoughts. And what is the root of those? How do people get by in the world like this? And I don't know what other word to use but depraved. And it's so frustrating, you know. I man, yeah. For years, I've wanted to be a police officer. And when I heard about that shooting on New Year's, I told Nikki, I said, "Man, I wish I was out there so I could be a part of this in the community." And I call it in the cut. And I don't know if that's on my list of things that I'm going to accomplish. It's definitely outside of my control. It's not just something you can train for and do. It's kind of like, I don't know if I wanted to be, I don't know, what's some other difficult job to get. It's in other people's hands, and I just can't wrap my head around this like thinking thing, and just kind of all goes through like ego. And my sister told me earlier I talked to her for probably over an hour, and she was talking about writing a book. My sister wants to write a book, and she's been talking about it for years. And she said, before, in years past, when I've wanted to write a book, it was my ego that prevented me from being able to do that. And she said, I'm moving into a place where I hopefully am ready to do that. And I think that's how things are presented. Myron Golden's a guy I like listening to, and he said that we can only improve ourselves and then the opportunities come, and we have to be ready when the opportunities come. And Jim Rohn, you guys should look up Jim Rohn if you don't listen to him. But one of his things as well is just about um, man, I'm really struggling to keep my train of thought tonight. I don't know, maybe it's just a bad time of night. Um, yeah, I think I'm just gonna hang up. Man, losing my thoughts. Maybe I should start writing this stuff down. Maybe that'd be a great idea. All right, I'm gonna get off of here. Thank you. I don't even know why I'm saying thank you. So goofy. Anyways.